hearing on disclosure, edited, very nicely edited, that took place April 29, May 3, 30 hours of testimony from 40 witnesses to a panel of former members of Congress, including, of course, Senator Gravel. And those will hit the Hill about April 7 or 8. We're going to do a substantial media ramp into that, which will include asking people all over the country to email and send tweets to their representatives, their 2 senators and congressperson, to asking that they check this material out and talk with me. So it's going to be about a 3-month, full-scale, broad-spectrum effort to get the attention of the Congress and get hearings. It will certainly get the attention of the media, regardless of what happens. So it's going to generate quite a bit of heat. But it's the most comprehensive effort, and it wouldn't even be remotely possible if it wasn't for the citizen hearing on disclosure, the record of that we have, and of course the participation by the members of Congress, including Senator Gravel. It's a game changer. And what's unique about it, never really been done before, is that by providing this record to all of the members, particularly the ones I'll be approaching, which are the committee members of the various committees that are appropriate, they can see exactly how the hearing would go, the quality of the witnesses, the testimony, how the sitting committee reacted to it, their questions, and so forth. And it just strips the political risk out of the equation so that it makes it easier for them to say, okay, let's do this. And of course, if they do it, if we actually get hearings, regardless of the media storm, I'm correct, if we get hearings, I believe the government will have no choice but to finally step out. The president will have to step out after cutting a deal and with the military people, military intelligence, and announce the ET presence. That's the game plan. It's going to be very, very interesting, and it starts essentially on March 31st. We'll all be doing some media in the 5 or 6 days earlier.
Now, during those 5 days, Senator Gravel, I watched you and the other 5 retired congressmen and women, and you literally transformed over those 5 days, which is what we said last month. Now, the other day, I reached out and spoke to Senator Dukakis, and initially, right off the bat, I said, the word UFO, and he essentially scoffed. But I said, hear me out for a second. I said, there was a citizen hearing on disclosure. Have you heard about it? He said, no. I said, it was a mock congressional hearing with 5 retired congressmen and 1 retired senator who Mike Gravel. He actually started to listen at that point. I said, over those 5 days, they heard testimony of the 40 witnesses, high military ranking expert witnesses, and they were transformed and came to 2 conclusions. 1, that we are being engaged by an extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional race, and 2, that the government has known about it and has been covering it up since at least 1947, if not before. And he agreed to look at the hearings and then, may speak on it. I want to ask you, what would you tell every other politician out there who fails to do this job, who fails to hear what the military witnesses have to say about what has happened in this country?
Well, what I would tell them is essentially underscoring what Steve Bassett is doing. He is sending to the Congress, to the individual members, copies of the DVDs of the hearings. So obviously a good number of them will have their staff look at this, but then I hope that the staff will be sufficiently impressed with the caliber of testimony we received that they would then bring it to the attention forcefully of their particular member. And as a result of that, then there would be the beginning of a dialogue between individual members that could eventually, as Steve hopes, lead to hearings by the Congress in a more formal setting of a committee or subcommittee.
Yes, Senator Gravel, you ran for President of the United States. So has, Dennis Kucinich. And he and Obama were asked something in regards to the UFO phenomenon. And Dennis Kucinich was basically laughed out by the press. And Obama pretty much says, I don't really care what's going on in outer space. I care about what's happening here on planet Earth. But basically, I think after when you came out on Third Phase of Moon last month, people in the public and people in high officials places are coming out and thinking, hey, maybe I might need to rethink this. We really, this is, what do you think about how the media is taking to the UFO phenomenon? Are they doing their job, or are they basically dropping the ball and are covering it up?
They're dropping the ball and covering it up. And it's not unusual for the mainstream media to just follow blindly the policies set by the government. And the policy that we have is that the government doesn't acknowledge that the issue exists, and what information they have, they cover up and say it doesn't exist. We don't know anything about it. And this is what we hope will transpire, or a catharsis will take place once enough members are able to focus on the testimony, the awesome testimony that we received with the hearings that Steve Bassett was able to set up last May.
Senator Gravel, I want to ask you, during the debates, it's pretty much the biggest podium you'll ever have in history on television. It's witnessed by millions, if not maybe a billion people around the planet eventually. Is there any restrictions, what you cannot say and what you can say in regards to, possible alien existence?
No, not at all. There's no restriction on it. It's a question of becoming informed as to the academic research that's been done out there and the facts that are out there. And, of course, the view that I have that it would be the ultimate human arrogance of the people of this planet to think that we are the only sentient beings in the cosmos. That's ridiculous. We now know that there are thousands of planets and stars out there that could sustain life. Now, is there life out there that's superior to ours or inferior to ours? Likely. The question is, it's so difficult to prove because no effort has been made to outreach that other than the astronomers and the telescopes that are out there peering at what may be possibly occurring in the cosmos.
Yeah, I have a question for both you, Mr. Bassett and Senator, which I'd like to get an answer, both because of your respective careers. Now, there have been several politicians who have things at stake, such as the Bush family, director of CIA, big oil money. They have a lot to lose if free energy comes forward as a result of Downs ET craft, which we have stored in United States soil. Now, what are the benefits of the disclosure to all of humanity, which is kind of a given, and also the loss for those in power, politicians, royal families, and the rich alike?
Steve, go ahead.
Let me start with that one. Look, I understand this, that people have raised this issue and they're trying to sort of find some basic equations to use to think about this. But it's just not that simple. Anytime there's a major change certainly in the world, a paradigm shift in the human, the human condition, there are people who benefit, people who maybe lose a little bit. The wise people adjust; they reconfigure to take advantage of the change. And so, yeah, you can pick winners and losers, I suppose, in terms of what happens in a post-disclosure world after the announcement's been made. But there's so many things that are going to take place, and they're so interconnected that I assure you, it's not straightforward at all that all the oil billionaires will go broke. Not going to happen, or that these other vested interests will be turned upside down. No, I don't think so. What will happen, though, is that they will have to make adjustments, as well as the general population. And there are some significant benefits that may emerge during that period of adjustment. One of them certainly is the possibility, and it's a very real possibility, that the U.S. government has spent a fortune trying to understand the technologies and the crafts that they have gotten their hands on. And they've gotten their hands on a couple of them. And there's certainly already testimony that they have attempted to utilize or work off of some of that technology. That's Philip Corso's book, Day After Roswell. But more importantly, the propulsion system and the energy system. Those are profound technologies which any reasonable person would know if we could put them into full spectrum use around the world in a responsible way, it would be transforming. Those technologies are simply not available. They're even denied to exist by the government. And this is the truth embargo. And and for the government, it's simple. If they bring these technologies out, they know that the truth embargo, the acknowledgement of the ET issue, will have to end. And they're not ready to do it yet, so they're going to hold on to those techs. So, again, it's a very complex equation. I think the simple answer is, look, there's going to be change, and there's a huge potential benefit for the human race in general. And I also believe that the very wealthy will make adjustments and take advantage of this change, and they'll be just fine. The rich will still be rich, and hopefully the poor will be less poor. These are the kind of technologies that could go a long ways to bridging this growing gap between the rich and the poor, not only in the United States, which is just shameful, but around the world. So that's the way you have to look at it. Don't simplify it too much. But I want to make another quick point here, which is really interesting, and then to toss this to the senator. With respect to Dukakis, I'm very pleased that he is willing to look into this. And as you know, I have sent you the access code for the former governor to review the citizen hearing on disclosure at his convenience. And that brings us up this point. Governor Dukakis, Senator Gravel, and Congressman Bartlett are all octogenarians. They're very close in age. And so they certainly put to the lie that as people get, quote, older, they become more committed to the status quo and ossified in their thinking. Roscoe Bartlett, a Republican, Governor Dukakis, a Democrat, and, of course, Senator Gravel, a Libertarian, all are still open to this. Certainly, Congressman Bartlett makes some very strong statements. And so here's an example of people who, much later in life, are still thinking on the cutting edge of what's going on and willing to embrace what is new and try to bring that out and for the benefit of all. Where you've got Congress right now that's filled with a lot of young Turks whose minds are locked shut